The US of A. Taste the awesome. Kick-ass military. 'Cause freedom. Tons of cash. Yeah, we don't even know what to do with all of it. Killer bears? Why not? We always take it to 11. And huge trucks? Hell yeah, there's huge trucks.
Okay, we can go a little over the top sometimes. No one ever accused us of being understated. But here's the thing, there's more than a little truth to the idea that America is different than the rest of the world. In a lot of ways that should make us proud. And a few that probably shouldn't. Say what you will about the United States, but one area where we're definitely number one is self-esteem. A 2016 poll found that over 40% of Americans think they live in the best country in the world, the highest rate of any nation. Also, side note, maybe someone should check on the French? You've probably heard this kind of national pride described as American exceptionalism. Except, one hitch, that's not what that phrase means. At least, not necessarily. When social scientists talk about American exceptionalism, what they mean isn't that America is better or worse than any other country, it's that we're different. Like really oddly different. Perhaps the single clearest example of this comes from a decades-long survey of world cultures that found that the US is the most individualistic country on the planet. And that tracks with polls showing Americans are among the most likely people to say that hard work is the key to getting ahead in life, or that people are in control of their own fates. Now, why does this matter? Because it shapes our culture and our public policy. We don't just think differently than the rest of the world, we act differently. And there's a clear pattern at work. When Americans are given a choice, they tend to opt for more freedom than other countries. And there's a good chance that that's just as responsible for the things you like best about America as for the things you like least. Start with our economy. Take a look at the OECD, the group of industrialized nations most similar to the US, and you'll immediately see that we're kind of a freak show. Americans make more money than any of those other countries, and we also work longer hours than most of them. That might also be part of the reason we've got nearly 60% of the world's largest companies, own the biggest homes, and have the highest disposable income. And of course, that comes with trade-offs. We're also the only OECD country that doesn't require paid leave for workers, and the one where it's the easiest to fire employees.
You're fired.
We're an outlier on taxes, too, with only about half as much going to the government as in a country like Denmark. But then we also spend significantly less on social welfare programs. Which doesn't mean we're indifferent to people who've fallen on hard times, because another way we're exceptional is that the US leads the world in charitable giving, with the highest contributions of time and money to those in need. In fact, while a country like France dedicates nearly double as much of its national wealth to social spending as the US, Americans give more than double as much of their wealth to charity as the French do. Now, lest our heads get too big, it's worth knowing that we're also exceptional on some fronts where you don't want to be. The US has a higher percentage of its population in prison than any country in the world. But that's at least in part because we also have a murder rate 7 times higher than other wealthy nations. And while it's tempting to blame that on guns, which, by the way, we own way, way more of than any other country in the world, that's not the full story.
Because when it comes to murders that don't involve a gun, the rates in the US are still more than double those in other industrialized nations.
We're just a uniquely violent country. I mean, come on, you don't get Quentin Tarantino from Sweden. Although if you did, we'd have snatched him up by now. Because another way we're unique is that America is home to more immigrants than any country in the world, over 50 million. And our long history of welcoming newcomers has led to some eye-popping statistics, like the fact that there are about 80% as many Norwegian Americans as there are people living in Norway, more than 80% as many Jews as there are in Israel, and 6 times as many Irish Americans as there are citizens of Ireland. That's right, For all intents and purposes, Boston is a colony. Check the data, and time and again, you'll find that America is a distinctive and unusual country. We're simultaneously the only nation in the industrialized world without universal health care, and the world's leader in new drugs and medical devices. We simultaneously have the world's oldest constitution and some of its lowest voting rates. We simultaneously have more Nobel Prizes than the next 5 countries combined, and more animal-themed dating shows.
I want to get married, I want to have babies. Before I'm like 26, do you have health insurance?
Bottom line, we're a little weird. The good kind of weird, but weird nonetheless. And whether we want to boast about what's best about our country or complain about what's worse, we should keep in mind that they're probably two sides of the same coin. And whether or not we're number one, we can all at least agree that we're kind of special. Except for this guy. This guy, we can assure you, is not special.